this evening we're going to be, our meeting is being recorded, just so you guys know. And so this evening we're going to be talking about doing car transfers and travel with your chair. So, but before we get to that, the first thing I always do is we start out with introductions of everybody on the call here, so that we kind of have an idea of who's here. So if you're in a wheelchair, if you wouldn't mind telling us how long you've been in a wheelchair for. If you're still in therapy, please let us know that as well. And if it's a spinal cord injury, if you wouldn't mind telling us either the injury level or why you're use a wheelchair. My name is Brian Mazoyer. I kind of facilitate and coordinate the classes here. I'm a physical therapist assistant, and I am the rep here in Arizona for Permobile. So I'll go to my right here to Christine. On my screen, you're on my right.
Okay. I'm Christine Beecham. I'm an occupational therapist here at Banner Physical Therapy, formerly Good Samaritan. I do neuro, outpatient occupational therapy, and I run the seating clinic here as a seating and mobility specialist, and I'm here to help out. I'm going to go to Karen.
Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I'm Karen Halgren with the Spinal Cord Injury Association. I'm a T12 para from a hit-and-run motorcycle accident, and I am not doing therapy.
Eric? All right, so below you is Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Kenning. I'm with the Arizona Spinal Cord Injury Association. I work here as one of the program coordinators. I have had an injury since birth. I was born breech, and it affected me so that I have I think like a T11, T12 injury, and I'm what you would call a partial para. So it's partial paralysis. So yeah.
Okay. Gary? Oh. You done, Eric?
Gary. No, I was gonna.
Yeah, Gary.
I'm Gary Venjohn, one of the instructors, T12 paraplegic since 1978, auto accident. I'm not in therapy now. I was a long time ago. I don't even remember how to spell it anymore. But anyway, thank you guys for all being here. Hopefully we can give you some information that's helpful for your life.
And Dominic?
I am Dominic Corridon. I'm a 5'6" complete injury from a car accident back in Michigan in 1994. It was 3 weeks after my 16th birthday. Just puts me almost 42 years old. Anybody cares. Been in wheelchair sports ever since pretty much day one. All sorts of different, like regular sports, basketball, tennis, all that sort of stuff. And then always got into outdoor adventures, hand cycling and camping and kayaking, all that sort of fun stuff. Yeah, birthday says history.
All right. Thanks, Dominic. Hey, Sarah, are you in a position to talk and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am. I had a hard time getting on though.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you made it though.
Yeah, I tried to get on right at about 4 o'clock, and I didn't have a link or nothing, and I just had a difficult time.
Okay. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the group as to who you are and.
All right. Yeah, my name is Sarah, and I got injured back in 2018.
Okay.
And I'm an incomplete T4. I have a L4 and L5 injury as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then Joshua, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, of course. I'm Josh. I'm a T6 incomplete injury. I've been in a wheelchair for about 2 months. My accident was back in May, motorcycle, and I'm just kind of completed inpatient therapy, and I'm doing a little bit of outpatient therapy right now. And yeah, that's about it.
All right. Cleo, you want to introduce yourself a little bit? I know you got to type.
Kimberly.
So Cleo is a third-year PT student at the University of Utah. So are you actually here in Arizona, or are you in Utah? That'd be cool if you were in Utah. It'd be the first time. Oh, that's right. You're at Swan. I forgot. That's right. You're at Swan Rehab. Okay. All right. And then next to Cleo, I see Cassie. Can you introduce yourself, Cassie?
Yeah, actually, I'm a second-year physical therapy student at AT Still University.
Well, welcome to our group this evening.
Thank you.
So anybody that was on the call last week, do you have any questions from any of the things that we did? Anything come up from what we talked about last week with, let's see, help me out. We did wheelies, we talked about curbs, we talked about opening and closing doors. So did anything, questions come up from anybody? Sarah?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at that one
Okay.
because I had something going on, but.
Did you have a question based on?
Well, okay, what all did you guys went and touched up on wheelies and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry you missed that.
Yeah, so what would be actually what are some really good ways to possibly do one?
Well, that was a big chunk of the topic from last week.
Okay.
I did record it, so.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's right. Karen recorded it. So
Oh, okay.
how does someone review that, Karen?
I'll send them the link for it.
Okay, so send the link from last week to Sarah so she can look at it. And Sarah, you can see all the things that we did with wheelies and with going up and down curbs and stuff. Yeah, you can look at all that. Okay?
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Okay. Anybody else have questions or anything from last week's class that was here for the class?
Yeah, I kind of had a quick question. So do you remember the type of wheelie that Corbin was showing to get up curbs?
You mean just rolling up onto the curb?
Yeah, kind of like pushing up while he goes up.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so like for practicing that, I'm assuming you should have a spotter or something. Where's kind of like the best placement can be?
I mean, certainly yes to having a spotter, because there's nothing like going back on your head or coming out of your chair. So I would say certainly have a spotter when you're first learning to do it. Yes. And
I think when we've done it before, when we're practicing wheelies, we have that gate belt that's on somebody's non-movable part of their chair, like their axle. So we kind of have a loose kind of lead on it, letting people kind of work out their wheelie or work out their skill, so that we have that leash to kind of pull up if you feel like you're really going back. So that's where I kind of tend to go when I'm helping somebody.
yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
And the other thing is when going up and down the curbs, it's obviously you're not starting with you're not starting out on a 6-inch curb. You're starting small and work your way up. At least that's how I taught people, is that I would start with a 1 or 2 inch curb and then just kind of gradually get bigger and bigger and bigger until we figured out, okay, here's your max as far as, or here's my max as far as high as I can go. So it just depends on the person. But definitely having someone spotting you is an important thing in learning how to do wheelies. Yeah, just to make sure that you're not causing any further harm to your body. You guys agree with that? Dominic,
Yeah.
Gary?
Certainly.
Yeah.
When he's talking about practicing wheelies and he mentioned curbs at the same time, he's not practicing his wheelies by trying to do a curb, is he?
I don't know. Joshua?
You should.
Corbin showed a wheelie onto the curb and a weight shift to kind of kind of carry forward over the curb.
Right. Well, the thing is, Joshua, you should learn how to do a wheelie pretty good before you attempt to go up a curb. Because once you learn how to do the wheelie a lot better, you're going to have a lot of your balance points down, so you know where the chair can go and stuff. Because as the curbs go higher, the front of your chair's got to come up higher also. So if you practice your wheelies and get really good at those, then go out and try to do curbs. And when I first started mine, the therapist had, like what Brian said, they had me starting on 2 inches and not on a curb, but they had a setup where there was like a piece of plywood or 2 pieces of plywood together or something that you would transfer up on, and then they drop another couple down to make it 4 inches or 3 inches, and they just keep making it taller, until you got big enough to where you could do a curb, and then we go out and find a curb that we could do and start from there. Now, when you go outside for the first time, don't try the 4-inch curb. Like they said, try this short curb, which might be just your a gutter cut, where the gutter cut goes, and you just got to be popped over that as your chair is moving to get that experience of having your chair move and hitting the wheelie at the same time, because that's what you got to do when you're going up the curb. You got to be able to come into a wheelie, keep the chair moving, and go up over an obstacle. I hope that helped you.
Yeah.
You're still in therapy, Joshua?
Kind of, yeah. I'm doing outpatient stuff. A lot of
Yeah, that's because you're home already. You're back home, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So are they working with you on wheelies and curbs and things like that while you're in therapy at outpatient?
Well, I've kind of done, and I think I mentioned this last time, but they taught me how to go up curbs by just leaning forward and going up. So I can get up curbs and I can do wheelies and stuff. I want to learn the other way as well,
Yeah, and I think it's really, I think that's a great thing, because I think it's important to know how to do something more than one way, because there may be instances where you need to be able to have some other technique in your back pocket to be able to utilize to do something, whether it's get up a curb or up a ramp or stairs or whatever it may be. So so I think it's important to have have skills to be able to do more than one thing, and that just gives you that much more control over the environment that you're working in or moving around in.
Right.
Yeah, and I wish Corbin was here again. Maybe I would have had him show you something real quick, but so he's not. So I guess if it's okay with everybody, we're going to move on to tonight's topic so that we're not getting too far behind here. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. So so tonight's topic is transfers into cars and transfers and travel. Transfers into cars and travel. Geez, I have a hard time talking. Josh, do you drive?
I used to.
Well, okay. Since your injury, do you drive?
I haven't yet, so
okay.
That's one of my goals. And
okay.
Working on an outpatient.
Okay. And Sarah, you drive, don't you?
No, I don't.
You do not. Okay. Okay.
All right. Sometimes I have people come in get me, and so who have cars.
Okay, they come and get you and take you places. Well, that's good. So I know that Eric has got a video that he did of himself getting into and out of, I'm assuming, his vehicle. So so I'll let you go ahead and take over the screen there, Eric, and show us what you got.
Okay. It'll take me just a second here. Okay, y'all can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay.
If you said y'all, yes, I can hear you.
That's exactly what I said.
Okay, then yes, I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm just getting everything set up.
And you're not even from the South.
No, but I thought I'd just throw it in there. I'm trying to get used to being in Arizona still.
Yeah.
All right, so I have a car transfer video that I did of me getting into my car and out of my car. So the first thing you're going to see is our icon.
It's your advertisement. Boy,
yep,
talk about product placement.
Okay, so yeah, hey, nothing but professional here. So this is a very simple setup. It's mounted on my steering column. This handle that is right underneath the steering wheel is the handle that I use to accelerate my vehicle as well as use the brake. And then I use one hand to steer. It's an automatic, so I just have to push down the brake and switch into whatever gear. And then there's a bar that goes down to the brake, and then there's another bar that runs underneath the dash, or like a wire, and it triggers the acceleration pedal. The next
Eric,
thing, yeah.
do you use like a Brody ball on your steering wheel?
I don't.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would like to, but I don't. It's interesting, especially if I got to do a lot of turns. But I just do the flat hand, turn. So, so that's another view of what it looks like. The next thing you're going to see is the trunk. There's a lot of garbage in there, a lot of stuff. But the thing I want to point out to you, you can see my mouse moving around, right?
Yep.
The thing I want to point out to you is I got some gloves here that I keep in the back. That helps me to get along the car. The metal gets very hot during the summer, so I have gloves. I have this, which is a camping chair. It's very simple, but allows me to put my chair in and put my front casters over the camping chair. It kind of locks my chair in so it's not bouncing all over the place and hitting my jugs and stuff. And then I use this crutch to help me motivate along the outside of my car to the driver's seat. So that's what I have. And then the next thing you're going to see is I'm going to be approaching the car, and that's what I'm going to be doing is opening it up. And then now I have minimal use of my legs, so it takes a little while sometimes to make my legs stiffen out. My spasticity helps me to straighten my legs. Some days my legs work, some days my legs don't. But what I'm doing is I'm preparing to stand up and to lift my chair into the back there. I put the crutch on the side and I put my gloves on. This is all to get ready and to be in the right position. Everything's about positioning. I usually my butt usually sticks out quite a ways because my feet are very, how should I say, very limited use. So I use my butt to kind of move my feet around. And you'll see how I lean my head forward to get my butt up. You know, that just follows what we talked about last week, where, you know, your body's going to follow where your head goes. So I got that up. The casters are over the camping chair, so my wheelchair's not going to move around. And I grab the trunk and bring it down. There's a little rain gutter on my car, so I can grab onto it with my hand without slipping off. And then when I get in, put my crutch away in the center, and then I turn around and get in and pull my legs in last. All right, and then I do the same thing, but in reverse. And so first thing, get my legs out, and then I'm going to grab my crutch. Again, you know, the amount of time I have that I can stand is a very small amount. A lot of my weight is on my arm. And that's why it looks like that's why it's difficult, because it's either the arm on the car or the arm on the crutch, but my legs are they're doing a little bit, but not a whole lot. Then I have to trigger the trunk again because of the way my trunk works. My actuator doesn't work so well, so I have to trigger it by pulling my keys out, which when I get a new vehicle, it's not going to do that anymore. And then I have the crutch there for stabilization, just in case my legs unbuckle. I have a chance of catching myself again. And that helps me to maneuver around. Then I use the crutch to help me pull the trunk down. As you can see, it's just sitting right up there. Real handy way to get it down. And then that's how I get in and out of my vehicle. And this is our organization once again. Any questions on that? Nope. Okay.
So you don't have to take your chair apart at all. It doesn't look like at all, right, Eric?
No,
You just lift it right up in the way it is.
Right. I used to have to do that back in the day when I had a Reliant K car. And that was really tough. I cannot tell you how many times I fell, and I just got tired of that. So I'm like, I'm going to a hatchback. I've been fighting going into a van situation. But, based on what Corbin said the other day too, really whatever vehicle, because I had him on a podcast, and you really, any vehicle you want to get, you can make it work. You just have to figure it out, and Corbin's a fabricator. He doesn't fabricate stories. Well, he might fabricate stories, but he also fabricates metalworks and lifts and stuff, and he's very talented in that arena. So I actually may approach him to help me with my next project. So who knows? But my point is, any vehicle you want, you could probably make it work if you just put enough research into it. I don't necessarily recommend a manual shift because that gets kind of tricky with doing that and having to accelerate and steer, and you only have two hands. So, but anyways, so yeah. Any questions? Any other questions?
How does that change when it's either really hot out or it's raining?
When it's raining, my crutch tips, if it's on the cement or like a concrete or even a tar, there's a lot of oil that builds up here in Arizona on those pavements, so it gets very slick, and so I have to make sure the crutch stays directly underneath my body. If I let my crutch tip go out a little bit, I'll just slam hard into the ground. I mean, my crutch tip just leaves. So I have to take very small steps. I have to be a lot more careful. I have to move incrementally instead of big steps. When it's hot, kind of the opposite. I take bigger leaps because my fingers are burning, and then as I'm moving along the car, the backs of my arm, they'll hit the window or the glass or the metal or anything on that car, and it just, that sizzling sound you hear, that's kind of what I imagine is happening to my skin at that moment, because it's painful, it's hot. And so I go as quickly as possible from my car to my chair, from my chair to my car. So it's a, yeah, but I've fallen too, and that's why it's good to have gloves on, because you do not want to get any bare skin on that on the heat, on anything that's heated up like the tar or the cement. You want to get off as quickly as possible, because you're gonna get blistered, and that could turn into an open sore, or that could turn into some sort of wound, and when you sit for most of your day, it can be a very tough deal to have to heal from that. So, it's not perfect, and it is a struggle, but it's my struggle, and it's my challenge in my life that I'm living up to. And at some point, I'll probably make my life a little easier. But right now, this is the way I choose to, get around. But like I said, it's not perfect. And that's one thing I'd like to share. Nothing is going to be perfect. We have to learn, as much as we want the world to adapt to us at times, again, it's up to us to rise up to adapt to the situation. And 9 times out of 10, all the fears that we have, really, they don't match up to the reality of what happens all the time. That worst case scenario doesn't happen all the time. It can happen, and it might happen, but there's a good chance it's not going to happen. And I would just say, trust yourself, trust what you know, trust in your own capabilities, and work with that and see what you can do. Because it's, you never know, you may discover something for yourself too. So, that's my spiel. I'm sorry?
You never know. You might discover, something new. So if you're going out with friends or something and getting into their car, do you do something? Do you just like whatever you need to do to get your chair into their car?
Was that meant directly for me?
Yeah.
Okay. At times I will, you know, when I go to, like with my wife, she has her own, she's got a CRV. I cannot motorize around that. The CRV is too high and it causes me too much pain in my shoulders to lift my arms and support my weight on that high of a vehicle. So, you know, she agrees to do that. You know, that's the agreement. But 9 times out of 10, we take my car.
Okay.
When I go with a friend, you know, it's kind of with the understanding that, hey, you're going to have to probably put my chair in. They're usually like, of course I'll do it, you know. So usually there's a good understanding there, and I make sure and talk with the people to make sure that they're okay with doing that. You know, it's not an assumption. It's a conversation to make sure that we're on the same page.
You know, right along with that, myself I prefer to take my own car as much as I can. I don't like riding with anybody else because I can control the situation. If I want to leave early or if I have to leave early, that means my friends wouldn't have to leave early or whatever. I'll meet them at the location.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to go together, because you never know what emergency might come up where you have to leave.
Yeah.
And by just having my car there, I know that I have a ride that I can get in and out of and get my transportation taken care of. And if somebody else is there, you never know what they might, heck, you might get in a fight with them, they let you there. I know that never happened to you, Eric, because you're such a nice guy.
No, actually, you know, the thing is, I mean, there's been moments in my life where, you know, I don't have full control of my bladder or my bowels. And, you know, if I have an accident and I'm around other people, I want to get out of there and go take care of that, you know? And so that's one of those situations where, Gary, that's true. I mean, I typically do drive my own vehicle because that's one of my fears. If something were to happen to where I have something about myself, I try not to inconvenience the other person because I want to keep their friendship and I don't want them to say, oh, we came all this way, now we got to go again. So, you know, that at least gives me the freedom to take care of myself without burdening other people. And I don't like to use the word burden because, to be honest, if they're truly your friends or if they're truly people that are working with you, they're never going to see it as a burden. Okay. It's just not that way because life isn't perfect.
No, it's not. So you mentioned a couple of things about your vehicle, Eric.
Yeah.
One of them was that with your wife's vehicle, you can't transfer the same way you do with yours, putting your hand along the top of the car.
Yeah, and
So
she has a gate that swings open too, so it's a whole other
the
situation.
tailgate of a CRV is different than yours. It's not a hatchback.
Yeah.
So what kind of things when you go car shopping, what kind of things do you look for in car shopping?
Okay, so I look for a medium to low profile on the vehicle. For me, like a Forester, Subaru or something like that. The ones they do now are quite high, but they used to do them where they were like a station wagon, like the old Datsun station wagons. That's the sort of height I look for. And then I'm looking typically for a hatchback, really, because those are the easiest ones. If I got a gate that swings out, you know, there's a good chance it's going to catch me. Not to say that a hatchback hasn't caught me in the face a couple of times. It has. I mean, this face didn't just happen. It was made. So, you know, I got hit in the face a couple times with my own hatchback, which is always fun. It wakes me up, that's for sure. So yeah, but I look for hatchback. I look for I look for like a front wheel drive because they're easier to work with. I look for kind of an all-around vehicle, to be honest, because I want to be able to go camping. I want to be able to go on those roads that are a little more shoddy, and this allows me to do it. I look for room in the vehicle because I want to be able to take 3 or 4 people as well as my wheelchair. So cruise control, I'm finding out that's a big deal. I need to have that. I would love to have it. Not having it for the last 10 years has been horrible. Long distance driving is not fun without cruise control. My arm gets very sore and cramps up. And as I get older, it gets worse. So cruise control, big deal. I need to be able to have all the controls right within my reach, which most cars are good for that. Yeah, so that's, yeah, the hatchback, you'd be surprised how many hatchbacks you cannot put your chair into without taking it apart. There are a lot of hatchbacks that don't have very much room in the trunk. I use a Honda Fit because it has that much room. It has a lot of room. But as you see, I had to put my passenger seats, I had to lay them down. The idea for me is to be able to have a four-seated vehicle with a hatchback that allows me to put my chair in without putting the seats down. That would be ideal. And that's why I was looking towards a Subaru on that.
Okay, thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Hey, Dominic, you've got, I know you have a video to show also, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I forgot I had one from when I was on a trip here recently. I did a video getting into the passenger side of a full-size pickup, but I don't have getting my chair in, purely because when you get in the passenger side, usually you have somebody there that's driving, and they would be the one to put your chair in, like Eric was saying, you know, like with his wife.
Well, I think it would still be good to show because it's showing the transfer. So I think that's still good.
Actual chair itself.
Okay, you froze, Dominic.
Okay. Let me. I want to.
There you go.
Did that? Can you see it now?
I see.
Yep.
Yeah, I see a guy in a chair next to a truck.
All
In the
right.
cul-de-sac.
See?
Got it.
So let's hope this works. So when you're opening the door, you want to so it doesn't hit your knees. You want to make sure to put your brakes on.
Wheel locks.
I put one leg up so that it makes it easier, because once you're up, your leg will bend. And I scooch forward to come out of the wheels of my chair so they don't obstruct. And I can grab the door here or the handle here. And then place my hand up here. Nice stable place. You can always stop here and then come up if you can't make the entire movement. Bring both legs in. Chair goes away. Close the door.
Dominic, how high was that transfer from the chair to the chair in the truck? How high a lift did you have to do?
It's about maybe 10 inches.
10 inches? Okay.
12 inches. It was a stock full.
Okay.
So it wasn't lifted or anything, but it's a bit.
So you're breaking up a little bit, but what I think I heard is the truck was not lifted, and it was like 10 to 12 inches.
Kind of good.
I think Dominic, you need to ask for better Wi-Fi for Christmas from Santa.
Yeah, maybe go out and come back in again.
Yeah. Because your face isn't moving, Dominic.
You're froze.
All right, so
boy.
while Dominic figures out technical issues, so Corbin, are you ready? Corbin,
Yep,
are you ready?
maybe.
Maybe? Okay.
Oh,
Are you putting, is that a floorboard you just put in your car?
You just-
Yeah, it's a floor.
You just put a floor in your car, didn't
Just
you?
put a floor in my car.
Okay, well,
Fabricator.
that's a good thing to have as a floor.
Yeah.
Have you had a
Is-
tetanus shot?
Yeah, I know. Are those just, is that a rusty metal bucket seat you're going to get into?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure which is sketchier, the crate that you were
Week one,
sitting
the crate.
on, yeah, or this. It's a toss-up. But okay, so tell us about what you're doing and what you're getting into.
Okay, so I'm getting into a 1961 MG midget. And there's no floor on the driver's side, but I mean, I could get in the RX-7 too, but this just got a small door, so I'm just gonna put my feet in first. Actually, with this one, I might just do this first. The steering wheel is very iffy.
Take the board out and you could Fred Flintstone it.
Oh, darn, I was thinking the same thing, Karen.
I'm just gonna get in.
We're giving our age now.
Yeah,
Pull my feet in. Put them in, and this is literally the first time I sat in this car.
well, there you go. Looks like it's
We have
a
this
good fit.
recorded.
You're recorded for prosperity.
The seat will be a little higher when I get the seat in there. It'll probably be up about here to the side.
Okay. And maybe not so rusty or not so metal to skin.
Right. It wasn't too bad. Oh, the seat actually broke. Oh well. But that would be getting into this car. Getting out would be the same thing. I just get my feet out first.
And everyone can see the importance of staying flexible because there's no way he was going to get in and out of that car if he did not have good range of motion in his legs.
Yeah. Now you need to put Roxy in there. Ever look over?
Right.
the field?
I don't know where she is.
Oh. Then you'll have her and Astro.
Oh. Kind of sketchy when I don't have the steering wheel hanging up to.
Well,
I thought sure he was gone for a moment.
are we gonna see a floor to chair transfer, I guess?
I thought we were
Yeah.
for just a moment there. I thought there was going to be one coming there.
Yeah.
Okay. So after we're done here, Corbin, please go get a tetanus shot.
Hey, where are you going, Corbin? It's not over.
He has like 3 more cars to do.
Yeah, there's one there, and one there.
Hey, Corbin, you wouldn't happen to have your portable hand controls around there to show people, do you?
Well, actually, Dominic does. Dominic's got his ready to go.
Okay.
So
Cool.
Dominic, go ahead and you can hear us.
Dominic's
Dominic?
still frozen.
I'm frozen.
Well, while we wait for Dominic, do you mind, I was gonna ask
Yeah.
Mark a question.
Yeah, am I still real?
Yes.
Go out and come back in again, Dominic. See if that helps.
Okay, Joshua, go ahead and ask Corbin your question.
So I see, Corbin, that you have a lot of, classic cars and stuff, so I'm assuming that you drive manual, is that correct?
No, actually, I'm gonna, like this RX-7 right here
Mm-hmm.
is an automatic.
So all the cars that you drive are automatic?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm gonna put one of these Mazda engine and transmissions into that 61 MG.
Okay, I was just curious as to whether or not anyone drove manual, and I was wondering how they would do it.
Yeah, it can be done. It's just one more thing that you have to, worry about.
Right.
I compete in rally in the car, the zebra striped car that's over there.
Yep.
And that's also an automatic transmission, but I've modified it so it acts like a manual. So I have to actually shift that car.
Okay.
And I'm really competitive in it. So
Do you have
a
like,
lot of, what's that?
is the shifting mechanism, is it kind of like paddle shifting, or I'm just kind of curious as to how that works?
No, on that one, it's just it's a Chevy Turbo 350 transmission. And what I did is I did a reverse pattern manual valve body. So it shifts, the pattern is reversed. So if you're in park, the first gear down, the first click that you do down is first gear, the second one's second gear, the third one's third gear. And each time that shifter goes back into the same position. So it's not quite paddle, but on the shifting lever that I have, there is actually a place, a mount that I could put a pneumatic actuator, so that I could do a paddle switch, and every time I push a button on the steering wheel, that pneumatic actuator would just punch that. There'd be two. There'd be one on one side that would punch it one way, and then one on the other side that would punch it the other way, and it would shift it either downshift or upshift. In my daily driver, it has them on the steering wheel, so they're actually thumb controlled. They're not paddle, but they're on the steering wheel for thumbs. That's a Porsche Cayenne, and so that I can upshift and downshift with the thumbs, or I can actually do it on the the floor shifter. I can go and put it over to manual and go up and down with the gear selector also. But
Awesome, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing.
no problem. Anytime if you want to come check this stuff out, no problem.
That would be really cool.
So
Okay.
I don't know what Dominic's situation is. Are you back,
Are you
Dominic?
there, Dominic? Dominic?
I'm back.
I'm back. Okay. So I know that you have a set of hand controls there, correct, Dominic?
Yeah, I have my portable hand controls, which I have to say these things have been probably one of the best purchases I've ever made. The portable hand controls are usually around, I found them on Amazon for like $270.
Okay. And they just clamp on, can go on any vehicle?
So yeah, so these clamps, you put one on the gas, one on the brake, and they pinch down, and then when they're in, you just have a handle like this. You put your one hand here, you push forward for the brake, and you pull back for the gas, and it's so any vehicle, and they're totally adjustable. The links are, so you can adjust them.
Yeah, and Corbin's actually showing the same
put
thing
it in my
a vehicle.
carry-on bag when I travel, when I fly. Nice, perfect.
Yeah, so you can see how Corbin has the same controls already set up in his car. Corbin, pan up to where the handle is so you can kind of see how can you reach that to show people how that operates?
That's the gas. And then you push on this side and it pivots on the gas side and hits the brake.
Look at that. Stop and go, stop and go,
They're
stop and go.
small enough and compact enough. Like I said, I can put them in my carry-on, or I can put them in a backpack. And when I get to wherever I am, if I'm renting a car or anything like that, I bring them right with me. I go right to the rental agency, and I can put them on any vehicle.
So speaking of rental vehicles, so when you show up at the rental agency, do they give you a hard time about having controls to put on the cars?
They, most of the time they don't. And I've been doing this for, I've been using portable hand controls for probably 20 years, you know, on different vehicles.
Okay.
And it used to be back in the day, the rental agencies, they wanted like 30 days advance notice to have a vehicle with hand controls.
Okay.
Even though they do it like the day before. But they wanted like this really long notice. And a lot of times I didn't know when I was traveling. I didn't know when I was going to be places or things like that. So I couldn't give them that notice. And originally, a long time ago, some of the rental agencies still had manual transmission cars. So the only stipulation I would give them when I would make the reservation was that it had to be an automatic transmission. It didn't matter the vehicle. And then it got to the point where now nobody uses a manual transmission. So at least not in the rentals. So I didn't even have to say that. And when I show up, they're like, so where's your hand controls? And I would show them my portables, and they were usually fine with that. Nobody's really giving me a hard time saying, no, I can't use those, or that's unsafe, or anything like that. Usually they're curious to see how they actually work.
So did they like hang around when you're putting them on and say, you know, to see how they go on, or to make sure they're, you know, are they inspecting anything, or they just like do your own thing and off you go? So
sometimes they
when you
do,
are
sometimes
traveling with, okay, sometimes they don't. Okay.
Some of the people are curious, but for the most part, it's not.
Okay. Okay.
So I've had it sometimes where I'll answer that same question since Dominic's cutting in and out. I've had it where they have come out there and watched it. I've had it to where the back side of the gas pedal is a solid plastic wedge, and you can't actually clamp that thing on there, because the tighter you try to clamp it, it slides off the wedge. It pinches itself right off the pedal. So I've actually had to have them switch car manufacturers for me and I'd have to go look at the gas pedals to see which gas pedal that thing is going to stay on. So I think the only one that I've ever run into a real problem with is the Hyundais, and but like Toyotas and Hondas and stuff, and Chrysler products and stuff like that. Trying to think of the last one that I drove. Oh, the last one I drove was a Mitsubishi Highlander, and they went on that thing so easy, and it was actually fun to drive. It was weird because it had that weird CVT transmission, so you couldn't feel any shift points, but that's, you know, past our discussion. But yeah, most of the time, you know, any automatic, and I've never had them question at all. I just go in there and I pay, and they give me the keys, and I go out to the parking lot. Every once in a while, I need them to get the car a little farther away from the car that it's parked right next to, just so that I have room to get the driver door all the way open so I can reach in there and do it. There was one time, I think Gary probably remembers this, when we were traveling with the Suns wheelchair basketball team. We actually called and pre-ordered it. At the time, I think it was a 72 or 48 hour advance notice to have a vehicle with hand controls. Well, technically they fulfilled their promise. They had a vehicle and they had hand controls, but the hand controls weren't installed in the vehicle. And this is probably one of the reasons that I got portables and started just carrying my own. because I actually, we had some tools with the team bag and stuff like that. So I actually installed hand controls on a rental vehicle, permanent hand controls. I installed permanent hand controls on the rental car, in the rental car parking lot.
Did you get a refund for that?
I did actually send them an invoice for that.
Nice.
Yeah, and they paid, and they gladly paid it, because they were actually pretty embarrassed that they did that, because usually they send them to a local installer and have them done, and that's why you have to do, like, it was at the time it was like 48 or 72 hours notice, so that they could get a vehicle to a local installer and have them installed and everything like that. But since then, I just started traveling with my own portables. One thing that I've actually never looked into it, but I've heard it from a few people that if you rent a car with the portable hand controls, insurance is, if something happens, insurance is iffy on that. If they're not permanent hand controls, if they're your portable hand controls. But I've never looked into that. I always get the insurance on my credit card, and my credit card doesn't even ask the question, and it's covered it. I've never had to do it or anything like that, but I called the credit card company and asked them, and they said that they don't care. They're like, is that the way you drive your regular car? And yes, and then like, okay, well then we got no problem with it.
Well, that's good.
But the rental car companies, I've heard, will not cover it if you get the insurance through the rental car stuff.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions about, before we move on with traveling, does anybody have any questions about car transfers or hand controls or anything, or questions about vehicles in general? Sarah, yes.
Yeah, I do. You know what? I noticed that it's easier for me. I've got friends who own cars, and I go places sometimes. It's easier if the seat is lower to transfer in than it is for me to try to transfer into a truck.
Yeah, and just because of the way everybody transfers, yeah, some people will find it's easier just to make that a leveler transfer.
And then I take my legs and I place them on the floor, and then I just, with all my upper body strength that I've got left, I'll just take and transfer myself in.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Does that work pretty well for you?
Yeah, it does. All except for when I'm trying to transfer into a truck.
Well, yeah, there's that. Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about transfers? Or I should say vehicles? Okay. So so we'll move on then to our next topic there, which is so now we're gonna, we've gotten in our vehicle here, so we're gonna go out and meet some friends for dinner. So when you go out to eat and stuff and visit with friends, Gary, do you what kind of things do you do as far as restaurants go?
When I go out to a restaurant to eat,
yeah.
Not much anymore. It used to be that you'd have to call and find out accessibility of the restaurant, all the other things, and half the time they didn't know what they were talking about because you're getting somebody at a front desk. When you ask them if they have a step, they don't usually mention the door that's sitting on the threshold that's a step. They won't mention that, but it's a step. So basically, if you're going to go out someplace, even if you call and make reservations, just assume it's not going to be very accessible for you. In Arizona, we're really lucky here because places are really a good accessibility to things. When you go east, they're not so much because the buildings are older buildings and stuff, and everything is raised up with steps. So depending upon where you are, you may have to do more preparation, such as maybe drive by, check it out yourself before you make the reservations. When you're in that area of town, go over there and take a look at it. If you're thinking about going to that restaurant, check it out. The other thing is check out the bathrooms. Make sure you can get in the bathroom. How much space they got between tables. You know, that type of thing's important. Or if they got a place they set you that's special, they say for people in wheelchairs like you, that'd be a good indication not to go eat there, because I don't want to be treated special like me. I want to be treated like everybody else, because normally they're going to set you by the kitchen door, by the bathroom door, out of the way someplace, and you don't need that. But otherwise, I've got a few restaurants I go to that I know they cater, you know, they know what I need. They know the service, the food's good. So I don't need to go exploring a whole lot of new restaurants. Occasionally, friends of mine, we may decide to go someplace new, but I don't worry about it too much in Phoenix anymore. Anything new or restaurants that are open, they're all pretty accessible down here. You go to other cities, it's another story completely. So just be prepared to turn around and walk away and go find another restaurant. That's what you got to do. Don't make a big stink about it. They're not going to fix anything there that night for you, just to accommodate you to get in their building and stuff. And if you're not comfortable having people pick your chair up and carry you in or anything else like that, then don't go. We'll find another restaurant. It's not that hard to do. There's a lot of them around.
Hey, Karen, are you still there?
I see Superman, but not Karen.
Yeah, I don't see. Okay, because I want to ask her some specific things then. How about you, Eric? Do you do anything different when you're going out? How about you, Eric? Do you do anything? Eric, you muted yourself.
Yes, I
There you
did.
go.
When I go out, yeah. The first time I go to a place, you know, a lot of times I'll try to make sure that I don't need to go to the bathroom, because you never know with bathrooms. They're pretty good. Like Gary was saying, they're pretty good here in Phoenix. But, you know, you get to some of these smaller towns, or you never know, some of those cozy little restaurants that have really good food. That's about all. You know? So I just take it one step at a time. Anytime I go to a new place, you know, I'm prepared. I'm prepared to leave if I have to, and go somewhere else. Or
it was,
you know,
Chrissy Teigen. Great show, and welcome to Hannity.
Or I'm prepared to do, you know, I'm prepared to do a little bit more to make it through that encounter. But then I would know, okay, you know, maybe not going to be the best place to go unless I have so you know, I remember I was in Flagstaff and it was disco night at one of the bars there, and you know, my friend asked me to meet her there, and I went there, and you know, we went dancing and everything, and when it got time to use the bathroom, I couldn't even get in the door to get into the bathroom. The doors were so narrow. So I've never been back there ever since. You know, I made it work, and I ended up leaving relatively soon after that. But, you know, I mean, it's not like they're going to change their restaurant anytime soon, because it's a historic restaurant. So, you know, they have some leverage there. So I try not to get in people's face too much about this sort of stuff, to be honest, because, you know, a lot of people are very accommodating and they'll make it work. You know, if I would have went up to someone and said, hey, I need to use your bathroom and I can't get in there, how are we going to make this work? They would have pulled, you know, 3 bouncers would have came by and said, okay, let's do this. They would have lifted me up and took me in there. You know, for me, I didn't want that type of embarrassment. So I
Or that much attention.
Yeah, really. I mean, well, Brian, to be honest, I already had tons of attention because I was on the dance floor dancing it up with the disco queen. And so,
oh, well, there you go.
You know, the radio station made comments about me that day. And I mean, it was, you know, a smile little moment, but yeah. And so,
okay.
Yeah, so I did get the attention, but I got the right kind of attention. I didn't get the attention I wasn't looking for. And that's to show
good.
me as someone who couldn't be independent. You know?
Okay. All right. Hey, Karen, from a because you're in a power chair. So from a power chair perspective, when you're going out or meeting friends somewhere, what kind of things, are you doing some of the same things that these guys have been talking about here?
Yeah, I usually don't plan anything out. I just wing it as I go.
You just wing it?
I just wing it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I have a catheter in, so I don't have to worry about the bathrooms.
Okay.
But I do check them so that I can let other people know. I check bathrooms, I check parking, how heavy the doors are. What else? Table, the spacing in the tables, and I'm always watching and looking.
If I could make just a quick comment too, there's some apps that it's called iAccess. And that's, just like Karen said, she goes to places and she lets people know iAccess is a great way to get involved with that. There's a couple apps out there where if you want to travel, and you don't have to go in there blind either. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I've noticed like Eric, I've noticed that when I have to go into the bathroom, to roll into a bathroom, some of them are just not at all that accessible. And I got to go in there and cap myself or whatever, and it's like, it's just not, it's hard to get in some of these bathrooms.
Yeah, get into some of the stalls, sometimes getting into the room can even be challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that also just depends on the person's definition of accessibility into the restroom. Because I know that there are certain standards that I think a restaurant or someplace has to follow by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. But it seems like some people will just do the bare minimum to allow someone in a chair in there, or someone maybe using a walker and not even worrying about a chair.
Yeah,
and so it just depends on.
What's really something is when I'll go roll into a bathroom somewhere and somebody who's not using a walker or a wheelchair just goes right on into the handicap bathroom, and it's like, yeah, I see that happening sometimes.
Yeah, I see that happen all the time, especially at the airport.
In the ballpark.
Or in the, yeah, that's a good place too.
Well, when it's at halftime or, that time when everyone needs to go to the bathroom all of a sudden, and those restrooms are just overly crowded, everyone's got to go,
Yeah, they're always just jam-packed, right?
Yeah, and technically those stalls aren't, they're not like reserved not for use for anybody else that's not disabled.
Right.
They're just bigger so that they're more convenient and usable for people in chairs and stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily mean that no one else can use them at all.
Right.
Well, the way to
usually they're
fix
nice and
that,
spacious and roomy in them.
right? Just have a sign printed up when you first go there. Take your sign along with you that says that there's filming in this bathroom to make sure that your disability. Just put that on the door when you first go in, and then when you leave, take it back off.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to make that sound so funny, but
it was funny.
It was funny. Yes, it was funny, Sarah. All right. So we've gone out to dinner now, and we decide that we need to go to the airport to go take a trip somewhere.
Hey, Brian, hang on a minute. Let's have Brian or Corbin talk about. Do you have a minute, Corbin, to talk about transferring into stools or into a booth and what they want to do with your wheelchair and how you approach that?
Oh yeah. So
right, Brian,
going out to restaurants and stuff like that. A lot of times I like to sit in a booth because the back of my chair, is basically not there. So it's kind of like I'm walking around all day. So I want to sit in a booth so I can just kick back and relax and lean against the back of the booth and stuff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, I'm kind of lucky. My chair is narrow enough that a lot of times my chair can just come underneath the end of the table. or I'll ask for a booth that's kind of, you know, in a corner or something like that, to where one side of the booth isn't going to be in a traffic way. Because a lot of times, like the host will want to take my chair and put it like behind the host stand or into another area or something like that. And what they say is it's a fire hazard. And my response to that is, for who? Because if something happens and and a whole bunch of people are getting out, how are you going to get my chair back to me so that I can get out?
Yep.
Or are they going to be responsible to get the chair to you to so you get out? Yeah.
So your chair, even if you're not in it, is still an extension of your body. So it needs to be near you, because it's your mobility. Like I said, I'm kind of lucky. My chair is under 20 inches wide, wheel to wheel. So a lot of times mine will come underneath the end of the table. If there's not a leg right up at the end of the table, a lot of times I can get my entire chair, whoever I'm with, and I will sit closer to the wall, and my chair can come all the way under the table. Or we just find which side of the booth it's more convenient or less in the way of being in a traffic pattern for the, you know, servers and stuff like that who are serving food. But like when they take my chair away, like my wallet is connected to my chair. You know, I have it's mounted. I have a little bag mounted on my chair. That's my wallet. And I have a new system now where I have like an industrial keychain thing. So I can take my wallet out like this. It's a bag, but it's on a cable that's a retracting cable. So now all I have to do is, when I get my cards and everything like that out, I can never drop this on the floor. I just let it go, and it goes back right to where it came from. So that's an idea that I've been testing out for the last couple months, and I actually really like it.
And there's no bruising on your leg from that retracting all the way and smacking you in the leg there?
No. It's just a little. It's a camera bag, actually. So it's just
really?
a little camera bag.
Oh, cool.
And I put
Cool.
I just hooked the thing onto the loop, and then you can see the cable here behind my hand, my arm and everything. And then I just have that mounted underneath my seat. So if I let it go, it just goes down, and it's hanging underneath my chair right here.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
Now I see it. That's clever.
Yeah, I've tried different things. I've got I've been using the bicycle handlebar one that clips and unclips, and I had that on the back of my chair. So I basically reach back like I'm grabbing my wallet and get that. But every once in a while, like if I would take that off in the car, or something, and then I'd go somewhere and have that be in the center console of my car, and all of a sudden, I go into, Walmart or somewhere like that, and I go to pay, and I reach back there and my wallet's not there. Two things happen. All of a sudden, I've got a whole bunch of stuff on the conveyor that I can't pay for. And two, what goes through my head is, did I lose my wallet? Did it fall off somewhere in the store? Did that clip finally fail and it fell off somewhere in the store? And then I'm crossing my fingers all the way back out to my vehicle, and then it's there in the cup holder in the center console, and I can, breathe a sigh of relief. But this way, with where I put my chair in my car, I usually put my wheels in the back area of the car, the back seat or the back hatch of these smaller cars, and I put my chair backrest down in the passenger floor area. So now the bottom of my chair and my footrest are in where the passenger would sit. So now I can just reach right over there, grab my wallet. It's hanging right there. I can grab it. It's still on that cable, so I can grab it, pull it all the way over to me, get whatever I need out of it, and as soon as I let it go, it goes right back to where it lives.
Good.
I'm actually liking the system so far.
Okay. Was that what you wanted to hear, Gary?
Yeah, I think the people, good for them to hear it about
Good. Okay.
keeping your chair nearby you when you go to those restaurants. Don't let them roll it away from you.
Yeah.
I didn't care about
Yeah.
his
Good
wallet.
point.
Or in theaters, like in I've gone to see like plays or musicals or something like that, and I'll get in the you know, in the last seat in the aisle or whatever, and I'll just tuck my chair as close to me as I can, and an usher will want to come over and take my chair, and you know, I tell them, you know, there's 2 reasons you can't take that. One is it's an extension of me and my wallet's on it. My, you know, other tools and stuff like that are on there. And 2, if you take it and something happens, all these people are going to have to crawl over me, and I'm not going to be able to get out, because there's no way you're going to be able to get that chair back to me, going against the flow of people leaving.
Especially if there's a fire.
Right, exactly. If there's a fire, I'm gonna be in my chair in 5 seconds, and I'll help hold the door open for people to get out.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, so we're going to move on then from our restaurant. We've had a big meal and a couple of drinks, so we're going to go to we need to go to the airport and go somewhere. So
are we now?
That's the best time
So
to
are
go to
you
the
saying
airport and go
we're drinking and driving, Brian? Is that what you're saying?
No, because we
right.
can take an Uber.
That's right.
We're an Uber to the airport. Okay, so this time we're going to Uber to the airport because we've had a couple of drinks and we're going to go flying. So so when you guys get to the airport, tell me. Talk about what kind of things you do, Dominic, when you're going to the airport, checking in. What kind of things, and what do you do beforehand? Also, are there things you do before you go to the airport to go somewhere?
So hopefully you can hear me and understand me. But what I'll do, I usually don't tell people, like when I make the reservations, when I make a flight reservation, I don't click wheelchair and all of that sort of stuff on the booking. So when I get to the ticket counter, what I'll do is I tell them then that I will need just an aisle chair at the gate, and to get me onto my seat. And like a lot of times I travel with a lot of extra stuff. I travel with my bike. I travel maybe with a second wheelchair, whether it's a basketball wheelchair or my hike wheelchair, something like that. And those things, those are considered medical devices. So there's no charge. So I'll work with the ticket counter, get all my baggage taken care of, and then I roll myself up to the gate, and I'll talk to the gate agents there. And a lot of times, like these last few flights, and they do it a lot, where they'll move my seat around, whatever seat I've been booked in. Like if it's in the back of the plane, they'll actually move me forward to a closer seat. It makes it easier for them. And I get a gate check tag that goes on my chair. And so if there's any like layover or anything like that, I make sure they know that I want my chair at each stop. Not that, because they'll put it in like baggage, and I'll get it at the very end of the trip if I don't say anything. And then I have to get an airport chair or whatever and have them take me around through the airport if there's a layover. And so I'm trying to think what else I do. Like with the transfers and stuff, they have an aisle chair, because even though my chair is very, very skinny, it doesn't fit down the normal class in a airplane. So I transferred to this aisle chair, and then that they then bring me onto the plane and back to my seat, and then I transfer to my seat. And one of the main things I do is I take my cushion off my chair, and I bring that and I put that on the seat, and I sit on that throughout the flight. And the other thing is I don't tell them, even though my chair is a rigid frame chair, I don't tell them that it comes apart. The last thing I need is them to lose a wheel or something like that in
Oh,
transit.
yeah. Gotcha.
So I make sure that they know that the chair is all one piece. It stays that way. It's how it goes. And so far, I've had really good luck. One of the things too that I learned traveling internationally is that a lot of airlines, they'll even have it in their ticketing rules. It says that they are not responsible for any damage to wheelchairs, strollers, things like that. But one of the things that I found out very important and kind of a little late, but there's what's called the Air Carriers Access Act. And what that does is it is kind of a governing rule over all of the TSA, all of the airline rules or anything like that. And it basically puts the responsibility back onto the airline, to the staff and stuff like that for any damages to a chair, your cushion, your wheels, anything like that. The main thing with that is that you have to go to the customer service and file your claim if any damage does happen. You have to file a claim with them before you leave the airport, because unfortunately, even with their rules, once you leave the airport, it's on you. So you have to make sure you do that before you leave the actual grounds of the airport. And it covers for a lot of different things. I tried to fly to China here years ago, and Air China wouldn't let me on the plane originally because they said, they asked where my caregiver was. And I showed them my passport, and I showed them all the stamps in my passport. And I said, I've traveled all these places without a caregiver. I don't need one. And they said, well, the flight is like 16 hours or 14 hours. And you didn't request an aisle chair, for, using the restroom or something on the plane. And I said, well, you don't have to worry about that. I don't need an aisle chair while I'm on the plane. And they said, well, we need 48 hours and you need one of those aisle chairs. And I said, no, I don't. And they fought me. Finally, the supervisor came. They wouldn't let me on the plane. And so I had to end up going home. This was before I knew about the Air Carriers Access Act. And had I would have known, I could have actually called for a representative while I was at the ticket counter, and they would have resolved the issue, and I would have been able to get on my plane. So there's little things like that that unfortunately you don't learn sometimes till it's too late. But trying to think, sure that I have a change of clothes, all my clothes, at least like one set, just in case there's something that happens while I'm flying, a flight's delayed, something's canceled, things like that. Just always be prepared, even with your carry-on stuff. I think that's about it.
You take anything off your chair?
Just my cushion. My chair is all welded, like the backrest doesn't fold, like nothing folds. So I don't ever worry about any of that.
Well, what about things like your anti-tippers and your clothing guards? Do those stay on the chair too?
Now, if I had anti-tippers,
those would
basically
come
what
with
they're
me.
fishing for. Basically, what they're fishing for is anything that's not bolted or welded to your chair. Take off your chair,
Yes.
because it will disappear.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Corbin. That is what I was fishing for. Now, anti-tippers don't usually just fall off, but certainly floating darts can. Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. I'm caught. So, and as a wheelchair user, you guys are first on, last off, right, on the plane?
That's
Yes.
the general practice.
Nodding. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there times when that's not the case, Corbin?
Well, sometimes it depends on where I'm sitting on the plane. If I'm at the bulkhead and my chair can come right up to me, a lot of times the flight attendants will see that and everything. And if somebody's taking a long time getting their bag out of the overhead, kind of in the back, and there's a big break in traffic, I tell them that it'll take me about 15 seconds to get if they bring my chair to me, it'll take me about 15 seconds. I'll be in it and I'll be gone. And a lot of times they will do their best to watch for a gap and do that. And they've even held it up just a little bit for me too. So I usually only bring that up if I have any sort of connecting flight. If I don't have a connecting flight, or usually when I book flights and I do a connecting flight, I schedule it to where my connecting flight isn't for a couple hours. So I can people watch, I can eat, I can go to the bathroom, I can do a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't have to get off that plane and race to the other end of the airport. Because 9 times out of 10, if you have a connecting flight, your connecting flight gate is the farthest gate that you can possibly,
It always is.
possibly be.
Yeah.
So a lot, if you don't pay attention to that when you're making connecting flights, if you're trying to be a little frugal and make a connecting flight, your connecting flight's going to be within like a half hour of your landing time, but it's going to be 25 minutes before you even get off the plane, and they're going to pre-board that other plane 10 minutes before that one leaves. So now you're 5 minutes late for a half hour connecting flight. You're going to be late to the gate. You're going to be now you have to wait for everyone else to get on because they're already boarding, and then you're the last one on.
Okay. So in going to another city and doing things like making reservations at a hotel, what kind of things do you generally ask for do you ask for anything when you're going to a hotel? Do you do anything different, Dominic? You look like you're ready to jump on the.
So this was one of the things I found in my experience is that when you say, even if you reserve a handicap accessible room, if you say an accessible room, if you say handicap, even if you say wheelchair accessible, the interpretation of that, there's a big gray area for what they consider accessible. It means a lot of different things in different places to different people. So I have to make sure that they are clear that I am in a wheelchair, I cannot walk. So they need to make sure doorways are wide enough, there's no stairs, things like that. And so you have to be very clear when you make those reservations. And then even when you get to the check-in counter, you have to make sure that they know the situation. And the biggest part of that too is and this goes with all sorts of scenarios. We've talked about restaurants, we talked about the flights. How you interact with people makes a huge difference on the comfort of your own experience. So if you're nasty to someone, if you're snippy, they're going to be that way back to you. This is a customer service back and forth. And so I try to be as nice and as accommodating as I can. And that turns around and does the same for them. I've had people bend over backwards to try to help me do things and make my experience so much better. But you do have to be, very clear in what your necessities are. So yeah, so there's a lot of things. You get into a lot of different scenarios, and you have to be somewhat adaptable too. I've traveled a lot internationally into places that are, not wheelchair accessible at all, and had to make do with those sort of things. Traveling in the States, for the most part, everything has been very, very easy. We do have the Americans with Disabilities Act. Places are supposed to be accessible, but not always.
Uh-oh.
And he's gone again.
We lost you again, Corbin. I'm sorry, Dominic. We lost you, Dominic. And
Yeah,
can you
you're,
hear us?
Breaking up again.
Okay.
I don't know what's
So
up with the
it-
internet tonight.
If I can make a comment on this, then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to be interrupting Dominic.
No.
Yeah, like here's an experience I just had. I went to the Grand Canyon, and we went to this Grand Canyon hotel, and a lot of the rooms were, I call the call center, for reservations, and that's the only way they do it is through a call center. And so I immediately say, hey, I'm in a wheelchair, and I know some of the places there in the Grand Canyon don't have elevators to the second and third floor. I want to make sure, I let them know that, hey, I just need to be able to get into the door, and I need, and that should be good. But if I can have like an accessible bathroom with wider doorways, that would be great. So like for me, I try to be flexible to what I'm comfortable with. Now, not everyone can be flexible in that way because they have very specific needs. If Karen goes into a room, she's got to be able to get through that doorway. She's got to be able to get to a bathroom. And at the very least, she's got to be able to have a Hoyer lift that can get through that bathroom, right, Karen?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really is to each person's ability that you want to approach this with, I believe, because, again, I was very nice to the person, and I said, hey, these are my only points that I cannot negotiate on. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get into the room. And they're like, yeah, okay, great. We'll get this taken care of. We'll get this figured out. So I get to the hotel, and they really didn't have a first level available for the type of room that I wanted. So they upgraded me to the presidential suite. And so I had like an apartment pretty much, but it had the accessible bathroom, it had the accessible doors, and they didn't charge me anymore. So sometimes being nice and kind to people in that way and being accommodating and letting them know that you are accommodating, you will try to make this work. However, there's a couple things that you cannot compromise on, because that means you can't get in the room or you can't function. Then it goes a long ways. It lets people know where your boundaries are, and so that they can accommodate more, because they want you there. They want your money, plain and simple. The people want your money. They really do. They want you to have a good time. They want you to give a good review. They want to attract more people. This is what they want. I mean, ultimately a business, if they're a business worth having, that's how they function. And in general, that theory works. I've had not good experiences, but well, I can't remember a not good experience because I'm usually pretty accommodating. I'm going to go to the Wigwam Hotel up in Williams this weekend. And I can tell you, I can barely fit in that door. I don't think Karen could fit through that door. It's a pretty thin door.
If you won't fit, I won't fit.
Yeah, I barely fit through there, Karen. But I definitely can't fit into the bathroom. So for me, what I do is I literally get out of my wheelchair and I crawl, because that's what I'm used to doing. Now, that's not to say that, I expect everyone else to do that, but I'm comfortable with doing that. And so that's why I'm okay with having that experience. But if you're not comfortable with doing something like that, making sure you can get into that bathroom is important. And so knowing the width of your wheelchair, you know, including your rims, you know, and if you have to, have them go measure it, you know, and make sure that they know that, you know, you have to be able to clear through that door with that measurement. It can't just be the frame and then all of a sudden you're running up against the door because the hinges are standard hinges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's a couple things to keep in mind. And as long as you're clear about what your needs are, it really helps people to be clear on what your needs need to be. You know, if I come across and I go, hey, I need a wide doorway. Well, what does that mean? You know, a standard doorway may be fine for me actually, because of the width of my wheelchair is standard. You know, I could get through almost any standard door. So, you know, it's really knowing yourself and knowing how you fit into the mold of the everywhere else.
Yeah, those are good points, Eric.
So.
And a lot of it just depends on, you know, because a disability for one person is completely different for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so what accommodations you might need, Eric, are going to be very different from what Gary might need, or what Dominic or Karen might need, or even what Josh needs. And so I think that, you know, trying to be, you know, when you're on the phone with someone, and I know a lot of times you're not talking to the hotel, you're talking to some call center, and they have no idea what the hotel looks like that you're going to. So, but trying to give that person, you know, as much information as possible, like, you know, my chair can you put in the notes to the hotel that my chair needs to be able to fit through a doorway that is at least 24 inches wide in order for me to get into the room. Those kind of things, being as specific as possible, and always making sure that you're being, you know, that you're being as accommodating to the person as possible. So you're being polite to that person when you're talking to them, because if you're polite, then, as we've said in the past, you know, you're the ambassador for the next person. So if you know, the next person, you're that belligerent guy or gal in the wheelchair, then that's how you know, you're going to be perceived, or all people in chairs are going to be perceived as those crazy people in wheelchairs, and I don't want to deal with them. And so trying to make sure that you're that ambassador for the next person. And what's that?
Well, go ahead. I thought you were done. Go ahead. I got something to say.
Okay, go ahead and say it, Gary. I'm done.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but one of the things when you're on the call center making the reservation for the hotel, after you make the reservation, and they had accessible rooms, everything, ask them for the phone number to the hotel that you're going to. And a lot of times, most of the time, I've never had them not, they'll give you that phone number. Then call the hotel and say, I have reservations at your hotel, and here are my needs. Tell the hotel directly.
Yep.
I found that I had much better results doing that.
You know, Gary,
That's a good idea.
I did that for the Grand Canyon reservation that I made, and the hotel actually made it so that their main phone number always forwards. So I did try exactly that, and normally that's exactly what I would also do. You know, I've gone on cruise ships too, and I'm telling you, those can be very fun. Like the Alaskan cruise, I've gone on Alaskan cruises, very accessible, very accessible. If you ever want to go on a cruise, get a hold of me. Anyone that has been thinking about it that's never gone, you've never gone, Corbin?
Never been on a cruise.
Oh, go on the Alaskan cruise. It's phenomenal.
You're gonna love it.
You're gonna love it. It's so
Take the
good.
show on the road. Let's all just go.
Let's
Let's
go
do it.
on a cruise. Well,
Eric's fine.
And to the point of the cruises, I mean, a lot of those cruises are catering to a lot of elderly population. A lot of them are in scooters, they're with walkers, they're with all kinds of paraphernalia. So they've been used to, I mean, a lot of cruise ships have been more accessible than a lot of places for longer. So they're used to that.
You have to do the reservation at least a year in advance to get a stateroom, which is where most of the handicap accessible rooms are. But I'm going to tell you, those rooms are amazing. They're so nice and so accommodating. The roll-in showers are just phenomenal. I loved it. I loved it. And the other thing though, when the ship is rocking and rolling on big waves, okay, that's kind of interesting because I was rolling in my wheelchair and then everyone in the walkers are going sideways because they couldn't stop themselves. So they're doing this the whole way. So, I mean, it has its own entertainment, you know? I'm just saying.
Entertainment. Nice. Nice.
Usable for Hoyers?
What's that?
I was asking Eric if the rooms, if you can use a Hoyer in them.
Yeah, you know what? I think you could. I think you could because the most of the doorways have a lip on them because if it's so you can seal the door so that water doesn't get in if for any reason. But the handicap accessible rooms don't have that. The lip is very, very small, and then when you get through the door, you could probably fit through the handicap rooms because the doorways are definitely wider, and then the bathrooms are pretty big too. There's not a ton of room in the bathrooms. You would probably have to get like a stateroom to really have, you know, enough room to just have a Hoyer lift there. But I'm sure you could do it because I've seen people in power chairs there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's one thing when I go to a hotel, I'll call them and I'll ask them, is your bed hollow underneath it? And they say, what do you mean? I said, if you get down on the floor and look from one side to the other, can you see all the way under it? Yeah. From one side to the other.
You know, I would suggest going through like a place like AAA, who could actually, they'll do some of the legwork for you too. So if you're going to go on a cruise or a trip like that where you want to plan some stuff out, you know, there's some travel agencies that'll help plan and make sure that you get what you need. Because AAA has been around for a long time and they work with elderly people. And so if you have limited...
You're old?
I'm not saying you're old. I'm saying Gary's old, but I'm not saying you're old, Karen. No, you know, I'm just saying that they work with all different types of modalities of getting around, and so they can help plan it too. And they know which cruises are going to work good.
Yeah, they do.
So,
man, Eric's cruising down the highway.
If you're looking at
cruising down the highway to the danger zone.
I've been on like 4 cruises already. So they're awesome.
If you go to AMAC or AARP, those retirement agent, you know, groups, a lot of times they have cruises set up for people, you know, that are retired and elderly, and they're set up and they'll have a lot of those answers for you.
Yeah. Well, what if you're a young guy like Joshua and he wants to get on a singles cruise, you know?
Yeah, they have those available.
I'm just saying, they got to make those suckers, you know, accessible.
I'm down. Let's go, Josh.
All right.
So when we transfer from domestic travel and we go international, now so that changes a whole lot of things, doesn't it? Because I know a lot of you have traveled internationally before.
Yeah, 13 hours is a long time.
Talk about some of the differences between, say, we'll talk about start with the plane. So, you know, things that are different on the plane versus differences in the plane here in the States. Because most of the flights here in country, you know, you can get from here to, you know, across to another stop in a few hours. So it's not like you're on a plane, you know, for 10, 12 hours at a time like you are, you know, traveling if you're traveling across the ocean or something. So talk about, Corbin, talk about travel on international plane or flight.
So a couple things that I've discovered on international flights is that there is international flights have an aisle chair on the plane. That is probably one of the most amazing little transformer pieces of equipment that I've ever seen. And then they also have usually a bank of bathrooms in each compartment in the middle, because now on domestic flights, your airplane is usually like 2 or 3 seats on the right side, 2 or 3 seats on the left side, and 1 aisle down the middle. International flights, it's usually 2 or 3 seats on the left side, 2 or 3 seats on the right side, and like 5 in the middle, and there's 2 aisles on each side of that big row of 5. So in every so often in the middle of the plane, there's like a bank of like 4 bathrooms. And one of the things that I discovered is on most airplanes, those bathrooms, there's 4 of them. So they're, in quadrants, and they can take a little special key, which is basically an Allen wrench, and they can release a latch, and the middle wall between 2 of them is an accordion wall, and it will just open right up. So now that bathroom is 2 bathrooms wide. So you can go in there, and do, poo with a friend, or something. But no, it just creates a ton more room in there. So you don't have to do all this airplane bathroom gymnastics to get into the thing. Because when it's just one little tiny little, I was going to say telephone booth bathroom, but I don't know if anybody knows what a telephone booth is anymore. But, a little tiny space, it's really hard to get in there on that little tiny aisle chair and be able to do anything. Because the space that you have to normally stand or whatever is only like, this big. And that aisle chair doesn't even fit in there. But when they take that center wall out and everything like that, you can go in there and turn around and everything. And usually when I get on the plane, one of the flight attendants will come over and have a little discussion with me because I'm the first on the plane. So they'll come back and do the little discussion about, what's going to happen with me in an emergency, all this kind of stuff. And then, to let them know if I have to use the restroom, and, they'll get that aisle chair out for me and, take me up there or whatever. And then they'll stay outside the bathroom door. And, when you're done, you open the door and, they'll take you back to your seat or whatever. I've been on a couple planes where the rear bathroom is off on one side, and it looks like there's no chance. Like I went back to one time and I was like, this thing's going to be super small. And they're like, no, check this out. And they opened up this little tiny door that was like this wide and pulled out, it was walls, but it was kind of like a curtain. And it just went, and it made, it created a whole nother room that actually covered the door of the aircraft. So now I had a bathroom with a view. And, it was, so, now I got the window on the door of the aircraft in the bathroom and everything like that. So I just took my time and,
back there.
I just had but it was pretty cool. So that's a couple things that, not a whole lot of people even know about. I've actually run into it where the flight attendants haven't even had experience with that bathroom wall thing. And I'll ask them, hey, can you release the wall in the bathroom? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, see that little hole right up there? If you there's a key that goes in that hole, and that wall will collapse, and it'll make this bathroom twice as big and a whole lot easier for me. But it's pretty amazing. International flights are actually quite pleasant when you know how to navigate them. And a lot of times the seats are a lot more comfortable. I haven't had many, I think I filled up 2 passports now. And I think in all those travels, I think I've only had like one bad experience traveling where it was like they didn't want to, all of a sudden I had to pay like $400 to get my sports equipment bag back when I didn't have to pay anything to get it there. And all of a sudden they wouldn't let it come back. So my choices were either pay like $400 or abandon it. And I wasn't going to abandon it because I had about $2,000 worth of equipment in it. So, and it wasn't medical equipment, so I couldn't even do that. And international flights not all of them adhere to those standards, even though they're mostly supposed to. But they, at the time, if they say no and there's nobody there that you can talk to and you got to get on a flight, you got to do what you got to do, and you got to take care of business when you get where you go.
Yeah.
So
And also remember that the ADA is the Americans with Disability. It doesn't apply if you're in another country.
Right, but the ADA,
there is something that does.
yeah, but the ADA doesn't cover aircraft. It's the
That's
Air
true.
Carrier Act.
You're right.
It's the Air Carrier Act.
Yes.
So it's a different thing. The ADA, and even in the United States airports, the ADA goes right up to the gate. And then once you get on the plane, now you're covered by the Air Carrier Act.
The Air Carrier Act, yes.
Yeah.
And how about maneuvering around in international airports, Dominic? Are they? Do you find them pretty accessible when you're moving around in different airports?
Yeah, actually, so like all of my travels around Europe, they'd actually worked out really, really well. One, because I don't speak really any foreign languages, so it was really nice that all of like the signage and everything is all very basic and all similar throughout the countries. So the symbol for bathroom, the symbol for elevator, stairs, things like that. One of the really cool things that I took away from my travels was how creative people were in making things accessible. And that was one of the coolest, like, overwhelming things was they literally had, on one of my trips in Switzerland, they had a forklift with a platform on the tangs of the forklift. And when I went to transfer from train to train, they brought the platform right over to the door. I rolled onto the platform, held on to the rails. They drove me to the next train, and I just got off the other end onto the next train. So instead of having something that was specific handicap, sort of oriented thing, this was just a crude platform that they had made to make it accessible.
Kind of cool.
Well,
it's a fun ride too.
Well, because it's safety whenever.
Yeah.
It had handrails and the ramps folded up. I was enclosed. I kind of felt like a zoo animal for a second there.
Yeah. And let's talk about safety, Corbin, the guy who was sitting in the rusty metal seat. So, and how about in getting around in a lot of different cities? Because I know a lot of you guys have been to different cities in Europe and around the world. So how accessible or how hard is it in a wheelchair getting around in some of those cities versus here in the United States?
Cobblestone is hard. Cobblestone is really hard.
Cobblestone is
It'll throw you. It'll throw you.
This is where the previous skills class comes into play.
Yeah.
Because
you're running on two wheels.
Getting around, like Corbin showing jumping curbs, things like that, those are very, very important and very frequently used skills when you're in other countries. Getting around in dirt, like Eric said, cobblestones, there's stairways. Again, the
suicide ramps.
Yes, super steep ramps. But again, I think my most valuable learning experience of traveling internationally, again, was just being accommodating and adaptable and working with people, because there were so many times when I would go, I was in places in Europe where they would say this building is 700 years old. We couldn't put in an elevator, but they were willing to pick me up and carry me up the stairs and carry my chair up the stairs and put me back in so that I could have that experience. So even though a place may not be blatantly wheelchair accessible, the people are there to make it work.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I had a similar experience in Rome. I accidentally got stuck in Rome overnight because I missed the connecting flight because there were 30 people from the wheelchair fencing organization on the flight from Sicily to Rome, and then there was one flight from Rome to Atlanta, and I missed that flight that day. So they put me up in a hotel, and they hired a cab, because the bus that went into the city that was free from the hotel wasn't accessible. So they hired a cab for me and took me into Rome. And so now when these guys are saying cobblestones, cobblestones in the United States, a lot of people translate that into like pavers, like bricks laying in the road and everything like that. Cobblestones in Europe are like what Dominic said, they're 700 years old. So they are big round rocks, and the walkways they're treacherous for people walking, and everything like that. So Rome, almost all the streets are the original streets from when Rome was the thriving city it started out to be.
From the time of Caesar.
Yeah. So I was riding a wheelie for 6 hours to get around Rome. And then I had a similar experience where, Dominic said, some people carried him upstairs in a old building, castle kind of thing, where I was at the bottom of the Spanish Steps in Rome, and two guys, Europe is unbelievably accommodating, because they understand that the stuff there is so old that they can't possibly make it accessible without being very invasive into or destroying some part of a building that's 700 years old. One guy, I think he was from Hungary, didn't speak English at all. The other guy was from Spain. He didn't speak English at all, and I don't think either one of them spoke each other's language either. But somehow the three of us communicated enough, and they asked me if I wanted to go to the top of the Spanish Steps. And these two complete strangers to me and each other carried me all the way up the stairs, waited there for the 20 minutes or whatever that I was able. They came around and looked around with me and everything like that. And then they helped me all the way back down the stairs and everything like that. And then the three of us went on our way, and everybody was just like, nobody seemed like they were put out at all. It was one of the most incredible experiences that I've ever had. And it's just, it's one of those things where, like Dominic said, if the more accommodating you are, and the nicer you are to people in the general area and stuff like that, and the way that you carry yourself and everything like that, like these complete strangers were just like, hey, do you want to go up there? We'll help you go up there. And I was like, okay. And they did, and it was awesome.
Cool.
But it's those kind of things, or like in, going to, a 1,500-year-old castle in Hungary, there is no accessibility. The only thing that was kind of cool about that is most of the things were naturally ramped, just because security and the way that they built the castles and everything like that was to make it super easy, and so people didn't trip when they were fighting in the castle. So a lot of things, like there were hardly any place in that castle that I couldn't get to, because everything was so easy to for them to be able to wheel carts and stuff like that around then. They sort of made it accessible back then so that they could, move stuff easily throughout the place. And then you go to some castles in Germany that are 15 different stories and everything like that. There's no way in hell you're getting around in one of those. But I'm sure that there were people there that would have helped with that. And one of the things that I say is, if anybody has any desire to go to Europe, go spend the weekend in Boston. Because Boston is one of the oldest cities in the United States. There's still a lot of buildings and everything like that still are lacking in ADA things, just because of how intrusive it would be to do something where they don't meet the requirements of like how many people. I don't know what they are, Gary. I know it's there's no such thing as grandfathered in, but there's like a number of employees or how intrusive it would be to the historic value of the building, all that kind of stuff. But there are some buildings and streets and stuff like that in the Boston area that they've preserved historically and everything like that. And if you want to go to Europe, take the time and go to Boston for a weekend. And if you can tolerate being in Boston for a weekend, you'll be fine in Europe. And Europe it's absolutely amazing. And like Dominic was saying earlier, you know, the airports in Europe are phenomenal. When Frankfurt was going through a bunch of reconstruction stuff, they had, I can't even remember what they called it, but it was like a handicap lounge. And it was like down in the basement parking lot. And it was like this little makeshift room and everything. And I went there like 3 times and went to that same room. They just escorted me down there, but they had, you know, tons of magazines and everything like that. But, you know, I couldn't get up to the airport, to the stores or the duty free or anything like that. And then one year I went there and the construction was done. And that lounge was like up in the main area of the shopping, like the huge mall shopping center and everything like that in the middle of it. And it was glass walls and lounge chairs and free food for miles. And it was absolutely amazing. And then they're starting to do it in the United States now, but in Europe, a lot of times somebody will meet you at the gate. They will assign somebody to you and they will meet you at the gate. They will escort you however you require or request to your next flight or to wherever you got to go. And they'll meet you and they'll make sure that you get to your next flight without any hitch, because, you know, traveling in a foreign country is, you know, it's different. So, you know, understanding things very quickly and everything like that over there is sometimes a struggle.
Okay. I think with that, we will adjourn for the evening. We have one more class again next Thursday, same time, same place. We're going to talk about, hopefully going to show some toys. You guys bring some toys, and talking about different types of chairs. And we're gonna do some stuff with some chair maintenance and chair setup as well. So everyone yes, Sarah.
Yeah, well, I kind of earlier when I had to put you guys on mute, I kind of had to do some chair maintenance.
Yeah, we saw you changing the tire there.
So, you know, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, you should hope you recorded that. You can show that next week.
What?
How to change a tire. You should have recorded that so you could show how to change a tire. So you guys.
It was so easy, but.
All right. Well, you guys all have a great week, and we will see you here next week. Bye.
Okay. See you all next week. Thanks for coming.